Hi everyone, welcome to Emma, a true infidelity story. I'm excited to share a new story with you. I sat beside Jack on the couch, the TV's glow, casting a soft light over us. My hands were trembling, and I felt like I was about to step off a precipice. The weight of my secret was crushing and I couldn't bear it alone any longer. Jack. I started, my voice barely above a whisper. There's something I need to tell you, something I've done that I deeply regret. He turned to me, his expression shifting from relaxed to concerned. What is it? Lily. His voice was gentle, but there was a tremor of fear in it. I took a deep breath, the words heavy in my throat. I was alone and I felt so isolated. I crossed a line with Emily, not out of desire but out of a need for connection. I'm so sorry, Jack. I didn't know how else to handle the loneliness. The silence that followed was deafening. Jack's face went through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, and then a deep, palpable hurt. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the wooden floor, and walked to the edge of the porch, his back to me. I need some time, he said. After what felt like an eternity, his voice strained barely above a whisper. I need to think about this. I watched him walk away, the distance between us now, not just physical but emotional, a chasm I had created with my actions. The house felt colder, the silence heavier as I sat there, the weight of my mistake pressing down on me, wondering if I could ever bridge the gap I had caused. Will Lily's secret remain hidden, or will it explode into their lives? The scent of freshly turned earth and the soft hum of bees in the garden always brought me a sense of peace. Here, in this small patch of green, I could lose myself in the rhythm of life, watching as each seed I planted grew into something vibrant and alive. But today, as I knelt among the marigolds, my thoughts were elsewhere, drifting like the wisps of smoke from the barbecue next door. I glanced up at the sky, painted in the soft hues of sunset, and felt a pang of something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't dissatisfaction, not exactly, more like a whisper of a dream, a shadow of a desire that danced just out of reach. Jack would be home soon, his boots heavy on the gravel, his voice calling out to Emily, who would leap and bound towards him, tail wagging like a metronome. I loved watching them together, the simple joy they shared. But as I stood brushing the dirt from my hands, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more, something I was missing. The kitchen was warm, the aroma of the roast I had prepared filling the air. I set the table, the clink of cutlery, a familiar melody. Jack walked in, his face smeared with oil, his smile as bright as the neon signs he often worked under. Hey beautiful, he greeted, pulling me into a hug. He sent a mix of engine oil and aftershave smells like heaven in here. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Dinner's ready, I said, my voice softer than I intended. As we ate, the conversation flowed easily, but my mind was elsewhere. I watched Jack, his enthusiasm for his work, his dreams of owning his own shop. He was content, truly content, and it made me wonder why I couldn't feel the same. Later, as the dishes were cleared, I found myself at the sink, staring out into the deepening twilight. The shadows stretched long, much like the thoughts that stretched within me. Jack's hand on my shoulder brought me back everything. "Okay, Lily?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. I turned, forcing a smile. "Just thinking," I replied, not wanting to burden him with a restlessness that seemed to grow with each passing day. That night, as we lay in bed, the silence was thick with unspoken words. Jack's breathing evened out into sleep, but I lay awake, the ceiling fan casting shadows that danced like my thoughts. What was it that I wanted? What was this secret desire that I couldn't even name? I thought back to my youth, to the dreams I had before marriage, before motherhood. There was a time when I wanted to travel, to explore, to write, perhaps. But those dreams had been shelved, not discarded, but placed gently on a high shelf, out of reach. The next morning, as I watched Jack leave for work, his kiss lingering on my cheek, I felt the weight of my secret, the one I kept. Even for myself, it wasn't just about wanting more. It was about needing to find out who I was. Beyond this role I played so well. The garden called to me again, a sanctuary where I could think, where I could perhaps begin to unravel the mystery of my own heart. As I worked my hands moving through the soil, I realized that the answer might not be in changing my life, but in understanding it, in embracing the parts of me that had been dormant for too long. And so as the days turned into weeks, I began to explore not the world outside, but the world within. Each moment of quiet, each interaction with Jack, each laugh from our children, became a piece of the puzzle. I started to write again, small notes at first, capturing the essence of my days, my thoughts, my hidden desires. But this secret remained a silent companion in my journey of self-discovery. It was a whisper in the wind, a shadow in the garden, a question in the night. What was it that I truly wanted? And could I find the courage to seek it, even if it meant disrupting the perfect life we had built? As I stood in the garden, the sun warming my face, I knew that the answer would come not with a shout, but with a gentle unfolding like the petals of the roses I so lovingly tended. And perhaps in that unfolding I would find not just what I was missing, but what I had always been. The morning started like any other. The sound of Jack's alarm clock shattered the silence of our bedroom, its shrill beep a familiar intrusion into the quiet. I reached over to silence it, but Jack was already up, his side of the bed cold, a testament to his early mornings at the garage. I lay there for a moment, listening to the soft padding of his feet as he moved through the house, the routine as comforting as it was predictable. I got up, slipping into my robe, and made my way to the kitchen. The smell of bacon soon filled the air, a scent that always brought Emily running, her tail thumping against the floor. In anticipation, she danced around my feet, her eyes pleading for a scrap. I couldn't help but smile, tossing her a small piece of bacon, watching her gobble it up with such joy. But today something felt different. There was a heaviness in my tea, a premonition of change like the air before a storm. I couldn't shake it. Even as I went through the motions of preparing breakfast, Jack came in, his hair still damp from the shower, and wrapped his arms around me from behind, his touch lingering a moment longer than usual. "Morn, love," he murmured, his lips brushing against my ear, sending a familiar shiver down my spine. "Morning," I replied, turning to kiss him, feeling the warmth of his body against mine. There was a depth to his gaze today, a silent question, perhaps sensing the shift in my mood. He left for work, his kiss lingering on my lips, and I watched him drive away, the engine's roar fading into the distance. The house felt suddenly too quiet, too empty. I decided to spend the day in the garden, hoping the physical labor would ease the restlessness brewing inside me. The garden was my sanctuary, where I could lose myself in the simple act of nurturing life. I knelt among the marigolds, my hands sinking into the cool earth, the sun warming my back. Emily, ever my companion, lay nearby, her eyes following the birds that flirted from branch to branch. As I worked, my thoughts drifted to Jack. To us, we've been together since high school, our love story, one of simplicity and comfort. But lately I felt a disconnect, not from him but from myself. It's as if I've been living someone else's life, playing a role I've grown too comfortable in. I wondered if there was something more. I was missing something I wasn't allowing myself to feel. The day passed in a blur of sunlight and soil, and by evening the house was filled with the aroma of dinner. Jack came home later than usual, mentioning a late shift at the garage. He kissed me, his hands lingering on my waist, a touch that felt both comforting and questioning. "Late shift tonight," he said, his voice tired but warm. "I'll be back late." I nodded, understanding. But as he left, the silence of the house enveloped me, alone with my thoughts and Emily, who now lay at my feet. I felt the weight of my secret desires more acutely. What was it that I truly wanted? Was it the adventure I once craved, the freedom to explore not just the world, but my own heart? That night, after dinner, I found myself at my desk, the one I hadn't used for writing in years. I pulled out an old journal, its pages yellowed with time, and began to write. The words flowed, capturing the essence of my days, my thoughts, my hidden desires. It was like opening a door to a part of myself I had locked away. The house was quiet, save for the soft snoring of Emily and the occasional creak of the settling wood. I wrote about the dreams I had shelved, the travel, the exploration, the writing. Each word felt like a step towards understanding, towards reclaiming a part of me that had been dormant for too long. As the night deepened, I realized that the answer to my restlessness might not lie in changing my life, but in understanding it, in embracing the parts of me that had been neglected. The secret I kept, even for myself, was not just about wanting more. It was about needing to find out who I was, beyond the roles I played so well. I closed the journal, feeling a mix of relief and fear. What would happen if I pursued these desires? Could I disrupt the perfect life we had built? The questions lingered, but for now I had found solace in the act of writing in the gentle unfolding of my own heart. Much like the petals of the roses I so lovingly tended, and perhaps in that unfolding I would find not just what I was missing, but what I had always been. With Jack at work, the house felt emptier than usual. The quiet was almost oppressive, broken only by the soft ticking of the clock. In the living room I poured myself a glass of wine, the deep red liquid swirling in the glass mirroring the turmoil. In my mind, Emily, sensing my mood, patted over her first soft against my leg as she nestled closer. Her warmth was comforting, a small beacon in the vast sea of my solitude. As I sipped the wine, my thoughts began to wander, drifting like leaves on a gentle stream. The wine, the silence, and Emily's presence seemed to blur the lines of my usual boundaries. I felt a loneliness that was deep and consuming, a void that seemed to grow with each passing moment in this state of vulnerability. My need for connection overwhelmed me in a moment that felt both surreal and inevitable. I found myself reaching out to Emily, not with the intention of desire, but with a desperate need for some form of intimacy, some semblance of closeness. It was a fleeting moment, a touch that crossed lines I had never imagined. Crossing the act, though brief, left me in a state of shock and confusion, a whirlwind of emotions crashing over me like waves on a stormy sea. The realization hit me with the force of a gale. I had ventured into territory that was forbidden, a place where my heart and mind should never have wandered. Guilt, shame, and a profound sense of betrayal towards Jack flooded through me. I felt like I had betrayed not just him, but everything we stood for, everything we had built together. I retreated to the bathroom, the sanctuary where I could hide from the world. Turning on the shower, I stepped under the hot spray, hoping the water could wash away not just the physical remnants of my confusion, but the emotional turmoil as well. I stood there for hours, the steam filling the room, my tears mingling with the water, each drop a testament to my regret. The water ran cold eventually, but I stayed, my skin turning pink from the heat. My mind replayed the moment over and over each time, the guilt deepening. How could I face Jack? How could I look into his eyes knowing what I had done, even if it was in a moment of profound loneliness? Finally I turned off the shower, wrapping myself in a towel, my body heavy with the weight of my actions. I sat on the edge of the tub, the cold porcelain against my skin, a stark contrast to the warmth of the water. I knew I had to confront this, to face Jack with the truth, but the thought was paralyzing. The house was still quiet when I emerged from the bathroom, the wine glass now empty on the counter, a silent witness to my lapse in judgment. Emily watched me with those knowing eyes, her tail thumping softly against the floor. Perhaps sensing the shift in the air, I moved through the house, each step feeling like a march towards an inevitable confrontation. I couldn't let this fester, couldn't let it grow into something that would poison our relationship. I needed to speak with Jack, to explain, to apologize, to seek forgiveness. But as I sat at the kitchen table, the words I needed to say tangled in my throat. How do you explain the inexplicable? How do you convey the depth of your loneliness, your momentary lapse into seeking connection in the most inappropriate of places? The sound of Jack's truck pulling into the driveway snapped me back to reality. My heart raced, my palms sweaty. I heard his boots on the gravel, the familiar sound now laced with dread. The door opened, and there he was, his smile bright, his eyes tired but full of love. "Hey, beautiful," he greeted, his voice warm, unaware of the storm brewing within me. I managed a weak smile, my voice barely a whisper. "Hey." He moved towards me, his arms open for an embrace, but I stepped back, the distance between us suddenly vast. "Jack, we need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of my confession. His smile faded, replaced by concern. "What's wrong, Lily?" he asked, his voice gentle, his hand reaching out to touch my arm. I took a deep breath, the words like stones in my mouth. I did something today, something I regret deeply. It was a moment of weakness, of loneliness, and too need to tell you about it. His face, usually so open and loving, now clouded with confusion and a hint of fear. "What happened?" he asked, his voice low, bracing for the impact of my words. I looked into his eyes, those eyes that had always seen the best in me, and I knew I had to be honest, no matter the cost. I was alone and I felt so isolated. I crossed a line with Emily, not out of desire but out of a need for connection. "I'm so sorry, Jack. I didn't know how else to handle the loneliness." The silence that followed was deafening. Jack's expression was unreadable, a mix of hurt, confusion, and disbelief. He took a step back, his hand dropping from my arm as if it had been burned. "Lily," he started, his voice strained. "Don't even know what to say this. This is something I never expected from you." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I need to understand why I did this, why I felt so alone. I need to fix this. Fix us." Jack looked away, his jaw tight. "I need some time," he said. Finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to think about this." I watched him walk away. The distance between us now not just physical but emotional, a chasm I had created with my actions. The house felt colder, the silence heavier as I sat there, the weight of my mistake pressing down on me, wondering if I could ever bridge the gap I had caused. Jack returned late that evening, his face tired but lit up with a smile when he saw me. He didn't notice the storm brewing inside me at first, caught up in recounting his day at the garage. His voice was animated, detailing the challenges, with a vintage car that had come in his hands moving through the air as if he was still working on it. "I swear, Lily, you should have seen this beauty. A '67 Mustang needed. A whole new carburetor, took all day, but we got her purring like a kitten," he said, his eyes sparkling with the satisfaction of a job well done. I tried to listen, to engage, but my mind was a whirlwind of guilt and confusion. Every word he spoke felt like a reminder of what I had done, of the secret I was now carrying. My responses were mechanical, my laughter forced, as he talked. I watched him, his enthusiasm for his work, the way his eyes crinkle when he smiled. It was all so familiar. Yet now it felt like I was watching from behind a glass wall, unable to truly connect. The next morning I tried to act normal, to slip back into the routine of our life, but everything fell off. Emily, sensing my unease, kept close, her tail wagging less enthusiastically than usual. I avoided being alone with her, my guilt manifesting in avoidance. Each time she approached, my heart would race, and I'd find an excuse to step away to busy myself with something else. Jack, ever perceptive, noticed something was amiss. Over breakfast he reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "Are you okay, Lily? You seem distant," he said, his concern genuine, his eyes searching mine for an answer. I deflected, my voice unsteady. "Just tired. I guess didn't sleep well," I murmured, pulling my hand away, gently, unable to meet his gaze. The days that followed were a blur of internal conflict. My mind was a battleground, with my guilt and my love for Jack clashing violently. I questioned my sanity, my morality, and the very essence of our relationship. Was I losing myself? Had I already lost something vital? I considered therapy, the idea of talking to someone about this, about everything. But the fear of judgment, of being seen as monstrous, paralyzed me. How could I confess such a thing? How could I explain the depth of my loneliness, the moment of weakness that had led me to cross such an unthinkable line? As I moved through our home, each room seemed to echo with the weight of my secret. The kitchen, where I had prepared countless meals with love, now felt like a stage where I played a part one no longer recognized. The garden, once my sanctuary, now felt like a place where I had to hide from my own thoughts. Jack's presence, once a source of comfort, now felt like a mirror reflecting my guilt back at me. His touch, which had always been a balm, now felt like an accusation. I couldn't bear the thought of him looking at me with anything less than the love he always had. Yet I knew I had to tell him. The secret was a poison seeping into every aspect of our life. One evening, as we sat on the porch, the sky painted in the hues of sunset, I knew I couldn't keep it in any longer. The silence between us was thick, filled with unspoken words and the weight of my confession. "Jack," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "There's something I need to tell you, something I've done that I deeply regret." He turned to me, his expression shifting from relaxed to concerned. "What is it, Lily?" His voice was gentle, but there was a tremor of fear in it. I took a deep breath, the words heavy in my throat. I was alone and I felt so isolated. I crossed a line with Emily, not out of desire but out of a need for connection. I'm so sorry, Jack. I didn't know how else to handle the loneliness. The silence that followed was deafening. Jack's face went through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, and then a deep, palpable hurt. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the wooden floor, and walked to the edge of the porch, his back to me. I need some time, he said. After what felt like an eternity, his voice strained barely above a whisper. I need to think about this. I watched him walk away, the distance between us now, not just physical but emotional, a chasm I had created with my actions. The house felt colder, the silence heavier as I sat there, the weight of my mistake pressing down on me, wondering if I could ever bridge the gap I had caused. Will Lily's secret remain hidden, or will it explode into their lives? The question hung in the air, as palpable as the evening chill as I sat alone, the shadows of the garden stretching long, mirroring the shadows within my heart. I sat beside Jack on the couch, the TV's glow, casting a soft light over us. My hands were trembling and I felt like I was about to step off a precipice. The weight of my secret was crushing, and I couldn't bear it alone any longer. Jack, I started, my voice barely above a whisper. There's something I need to tell you, something I've done that I deeply regret. He turned to me, his expression shifting from relaxed to concerned. What is it, Lily? His voice was gentle, but there was a tremor of fear in it. I took a deep breath, the words heavy in my throat. I was alone and I felt so isolated. I crossed a line with Emily, not out of desire but out of a need for connection. I'm so sorry, Jack. I didn't know how else to handle the loneliness. The silence that followed was deafening. Jack's face went through a series of emotions: shock, confusion, and then a deep, palpable hurt. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the wooden floor, and walked to the edge of the porch, his back to me. I need some time, he said. After what felt like an eternity, his voice strained barely above a whisper. I need to think about this. I watched him walk away, the distance between us, now, not just physical but emotional, a chasm I had created with my actions. The house felt colder, the silence heavier as I sat there, the weight of my mistake pressing down on me, wondering if I could ever bridge the gap I had caused. The next few minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Jack stood at the edge of the porch, his silhouette stark against the fading light. I could see his shoulders rise and fall with each deep breath he took. Finally, he turned back to me, his face a mask of pain and confusion. Why, Lily, why did you feel so alone? His voice was raw, searching for understanding. Tears streamed down my face. As I tried to explain, I've been feeling lost, Jack, like I've been living someone else's life. I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a moment of weakness, a desperate need for some form of intimacy, something to fill the void I've been feeling. He sat down beside me again, his eyes searching mine. I thought we were happy. I thought you were happy. I am happy with you, Jack. It's not about us, not really. It's about me, about feeling like I've lost myself somewhere along the way. I didn't know how to voice it, how to deal with it. He took my hand, his grip, firm yet gentle. We've always talked about everything. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared. I admitted, my voice breaking, scared of what it might mean for us, for our family. I didn't want to disrupt what we have. Jack was silent for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on the back of my hand. Lily, love isn't just about the good times. It's about navigating the storms together. I'm hurt, deeply hurt, but I want to understand. I want to help you find yourself again if that's what you need. The tears came freely now, relief mixing with the guilt. I don't want to lose you, Jack. I love you and I'm so sorry for what I've done. He pulled me into his arms, his embrace both comforting and questioning. We need to talk about boundaries, about what this means for us. But Lily, I'm here because I love you, because I believe in us. We sat there wrapped in each other's arms, the night deepening around us. The conversation was painful, filled with tears and raw honesty. We discussed everything from our feelings of isolation to the complexities of our emotions, the boundaries we needed to set, and the love that had always been our foundation. As the night wore on, Jack, after a long silence, took my hand, his eyes meeting mine with a resolve that spoke of his commitment. We'll work through this together, Lily. It won't be easy, but we'll do it. The realization that our love, though tested, might be strong enough to withstand this storm brought a flicker of hope. Could our marriage survive this revelation? The question hung in the air as palpable as the evening chill. But for the first time since my confession, I felt a glimmer of possibility, a chance for redemption and healing. In the weeks that followed, the air in our home was thick with the weight of our conversations. Therapy became our sanctuary, a place where we could lay bare our souls without fear of judgment. Both, individually and as a couple, we sat in those soft worn chairs, the therapist's office in neutral ground where our words could find their truth. During our sessions we learned about forgiveness, not just as a concept, but as a practice, a daily choice to move forward. We talked about communication, how to express our deepest fears and desires without the fear of breaking each other. And we delved into the importance of addressing personal needs, understanding that our happiness was not just about each other but about ourselves as individuals. I found solace in understanding that my feelings of isolation were not about Jack's lack of presence or affection, but about my own identity, my own desires that had been shelved for too long. The therapist helped me see that my actions with Emily were a cry for help, a desperate attempt to reconnect with a part of myself. I had lost Emily. Our loyal companion remained a part of our family. Her presence, once a source of guilt, now served as a reminder of our journey through darkness into understanding. My relationship with her changed. I saw her not just as a pet, but as a being with her own needs and boundaries. I learned to respect her space, to give her the love she deserved without crossing lines that should never be crossed. As the weeks turned into months, our garden became a symbol of our growth. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the vibrant blooms, Jack and I found ourselves there, planting new flowers. Each seed we placed into the earth was a promise, a symbol of new beginnings. I watched Jack as he worked, his hands gentle with the soil, his face softened by the fading light. "You know," I said, breaking the silence, "these flowers, they are like us. They need space to grow, to find their own light, but they also need each other to thrive." He looked up at me, his eyes reflecting the sunset. "We've been through a lot, Lily, but look at us still here, still planting seeds for the future." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me, not just from the sun, but from the love and gratitude I felt for him. "I've realized something," I continued, my voice steady with newfound understanding. "It's not just about finding myself, but about finding us again, together with a deeper understanding of each other." Jack stood brushing the dirt from his hands and pulled me into an embrace. "I love you, Lily, and I'm grateful for your honesty, for your willingness to face this with me. We're stronger for it." We stood there wrapped in each other's arms, the garden around us alive with the promise of spring. The air was filled with the scent of earth and the soft hum of bees, a melody of life continuing, of healing and growth. As we stepped back, I looked at the new flowers, their petals just beginning to unfurl. "What does the future hold for us, Jack?" I asked, the question hanging in the air like the evening mist. He took my hand, his touch firm and reassuring. "I think it holds whatever we choose to make of it. We've learned to talk, to listen, to forgive. We've got Emily, who reminds us every day of the journey we've been on, and we've got each other with a love that's been tested and has come out stronger." I nodded, feeling the truth in his words, and maybe I added, "We'll find new dreams to chase together." "Yes," he agreed, his voice filled with a quiet determination. Together as we walked back to the house, Emily bounding ahead, I felt a peace settle over me. The path ahead was not without its challenges, but we were equipped now with tools of understanding, communication, and a renewed commitment to each other. The future, I realized, was not a fixed point on the horizon, but a journey we would navigate together with love, with patience, and with the understanding that sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest new beginnings. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks.